Welcome to everyone who's come this morning to commemorate this historic event. My name is Kristin Henderson. I'm the chair of the County Council. Today we will hear from the National Park Service, from the DOE, from the NNSA. We have our congressional representative and from our congressional representatives. I'd like to introduce several folks who've come here today and recognize some others who helped us get to where we are. So past Senator Bingaman and Senator Pete Domenici were supportive of our legislation for the new park to be incorporated into the National Park System as far back as 2004. And later on in 2012, Senators Bingaman and Udall, as well as Representative Lujan, offered bipartisan support for House and Senate bills that recommended the creation of the park. We have with us today Stephanie Garcia Richard, our state representative. We also have another number of current and past county councilors. We saw in the audience Jeff Rogers. We have David Israelovitz, Rick Reese, and Susan O'Leary up here. We saw in the audience Nona Bowman. And if there are other councilors, raise your hand. We have Mike Wheeler here, and we have Maury Pongerance over here. Nancy Bartlett. Nancy, thank you. I'm glad that folks are helping me out with this. James Krobosinski, the current counselor, asked me to send his regrets that he is sick today. He had some surgery that he had to not be here for. We also, I think it's possible Mike Wismer and Robert Gibson may be here, so they may be here as well. I wanted to also recognize from the DOE, we have Ken Davis-Leback, and we have Vicki Laux, and Vicki's been working very hard on this project. We also have Dr. Michael Brandt, Associate Director of Environmental Safety and Health, representing LANL and the Laboratory Director's Office. So thank you to all of those folks who've come here to be with us today. I wanted to let you all know Heather McClanahan, who's the Executive Director of our Historical Society, is still back in DC. She has been attending a historian scholar, a scholars group which is working on the messages that the National Park will be talking about here at this at our National Park, and so she can't be here with us today. She's working on the interpretive elements that will tell the story of the new park. And we also have Mike Wheeler in the audience, who not only is a past chair, but also part of the Historical Society. And that Historical Society has worked very hard to make this a reality. They not only saved our history, but they've worked with the federal government to make this a reality. And I want to also again acknowledge Nancy Bartlett and Hetty Dunn, who've worked so hard with the Historical Society to make this a reality. The park would not have been possible without the support of many others as well, including local, state, and national organizations that support the national parks, historic preservation, and heritage tourism. I want to acknowledge a number of these folks. If you are here, please raise your hand. We've got the Chamber of Commerce who was involved, Los Alamos Main Street, the J. Robert Oppenheimer Memorial Committee, the State Historic Preservation Office, the Atomic Heritage Foundation, the Los Alamos Creative District Advisory Committee, the National Park Trust, Bandelier National Monument, the Valle Caldera National Preserve, of course again our local historical museum staff, Harry Burgess in the County Manager's Office, and Becky Ayler in the County Attorney's Office, along with county staff and community services, economic development, marketing, and community development, many past and current Manhattan Park Citizen Committee members and the subcommittee members, and our county boards and commissions, especially the past and current Fuller Lodge Historic Advisory District Board, our Lodgers Tax Advisory Board, and our Art and Public Places Board members. It's a very long list of individuals who have worked in some way to help shape the creation and the reality of this Manhattan Project National Historical Park. It's an understatement to say that many of you have been working on this for a long time span, certainly more than 10 years. Thank you all for your dedicated time, talent, commitment, and service. Because of you, we're able to make the park a reality today. And we're honored that we're going to be sharing this event today with the Veterans Day annual ceremony. We had expected to have Jason Lott here, who is the superintendent of Bandelier National Park. And he is still on his way back from DC. We were there yesterday. I was lucky to be able to go and witness the actual creation of the park. And Jason, unfortunately, had a different flight than I did, so he's not here. But he will be here later today to join us for the Veterans event over at Fuller Lodge. I did want to quickly say, and I have some notes from him to read, the event yesterday was amazing. We watched Secretaries Jewell from the Department of Interior and Secretary Muniz from the Department of Energy sign the paperwork that actually created the park. In attendance were Senators Udall and Heinrich had worked very hard to make, all of the senators had worked on it, but he especially worked through the night calling people to make sure to keep it in the legislation that was passed a year ago, December. Also, Senator Lamar Alexander and Maria Cantwell from the other states that are involved in this were there yesterday. John Jarvis, the director of the National Park Service, was there. And it was really impressive to see it created, and it's so nice for our community. Here are the comments that Jason asked me to relay to you. Please accept, this is from Jason Lott, please accept my apologies for missing this important moment for Los Alamos County, the Department of Energy, and the National Park Service. I regret that my plane was delayed during my return to Los Alamos. Please know it was an honor to attend the ceremony in Washington, D.C., to witness the Secretaries of Interior and Energy finalize the process for establishing the Manhattan Project National Historical Park. With their strokes of a pen, the Department of Energy and the National Park Service, in collaboration with the communities of Los Alamos, Hanford, and Oak Ridge, will now partner to preserve and share the history and lessons of the Manhattan Project. This park, the newest of our nation's 409 parks, will tell a complex story of how the world advanced into the atomic age. It will explore the science, military strategy, legacy, consequences, as well as people and their stories that resulted in the construction and detonation of the world's first nuclear weapons. This park will provide the public an opportunity to understand an array of perspectives, to include the great achievement for science, the sacrifices and viewpoint of American citizens during this period, the ending of World War II, and the saving of American lives, the establishment of the United States as a world power, the winning of the Cold War, the ethical dilemmas of the use of nuclear weapons, as well as the human consequences of our use of these weapons. This will be a park dedicated to a highly controversial subject, and when successful, will educate the public so that they may understand and experience the range of perspectives applied to the Manhattan Project and this part of our nation's history. The Manhattan Project, in more than one way, unquestionably changed the world and continues to change the world, and this is why it was chosen to be preserved as a national park and why we're here today. Again, I am sorry to have missed this important occasion. So those are the comments from Jason Lott from Bandelier, and I have right here, this is the actual memorandum of understanding that created the park. I thought I'd share that with you all today. So we're glad this made it back today. So we're going to hear from a couple of folks. Those were our remarks from Jason Lott, and we will now have remarks from the NNSA. Harris Walker, the acting director for the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, is here. He came from D.C. to speak with us today. Thank you, Harris.
Good morning. As you can tell, I'm Harris Walker from the National Nuclear Security Administration. I was not prepared for the weather this morning. It is chillier than I expected it to be, even though I was warned. I bring greetings from Washington on behalf of Secretary Ernest Moniz, NNSA Administrator General Frank Klotz, and the many other members of our organizational leadership who greatly wish they could have been here today and asked me to pass along their excitement for this event. Since the inception of the Manhattan Project in 1942, the city and county of Los Alamos have played a vital role in the national security of our country. But for many years, the stories of what went on here have mostly stayed on the Hill or in the surrounding areas. For example, when I recently visited the Pueblo of San Ildefonso, Governor James Mountain told General Klotz and me the story of Oppenheimer's frequent visits to the Pueblo to take part in social gatherings, something that none of us knew and were amazed by. Well, now, thanks to Congress and an engaged partnership between the Department of Energy and the Department of Interior's National Park Service, stories like this one will be forever memorialized through the grand opening of the Manhattan Project National Historical Park. Yesterday, I was with Secretary Moniz, Secretary Jewell, Administrator Klotz, Chairwoman Henderson, Jason Lott, all those folks out in D.C. for that ceremony to mark the occasion, and ceremonies will also be held in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and Hanford, Washington, the other sites for this first park of its kind. In the early days, this site and Los Alamos National Laboratory were home to Project Y, the group that was tasked with designing and building the bomb. The government needed a remote location for the project, and Robert Oppenheimer knew just the place, as he owned a ranch close by. The rest is history. Today, Los Alamos National Laboratory is still home to some of the greatest scientific and engineering minds that the government has to offer, and their work helps to ensure that the United States remains competitive in an ever-changing defense and national security landscape. While our mission priorities and ways of doing business have certainly changed over the years, we remain committed to the people of this area and the preservation of the land on which we reside. This is my third trip to the area in as many months, and I've yet to not be carried away by the generosity of your people and the beauty of these hills. It's our hope that the new Manhattan Project National Park will provide the opportunity for many more people to experience the rich diversity that your community has to offer. Again, on behalf of the Department of Energy and the National Nuclear Security Administration, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. I look forward to everything on tap for today, to seeing old friends, and to meeting new ones. Thank you.
And thank you for coming out from DC
Sure.
for our comments. And now we're going to have some comments on behalf of the offices for Senator Udall and Senator Heinrich. And we know because they had to rush off from the MOA to go vote that they are in session right now. So here is Michelle Hawkes Ortiz on behalf of them.
Good morning. The following message is on behalf of Congressman Ben Ray Lujan and Senators Heinrich and Udall, on whose staff I serve. Dear friends, it's an honor to share a few words with you this morning in celebration of the MOU that was signed yesterday by Interior Secretary Sally Jewell and DOE Secretary Ernie Moniz. Today's grand opening marks the beginning of a new chapter in Los Alamos history, one that allows us to open our door more widely and showcase the central role of Los Alamos in what is arguably one of the most significant events in the history of the world. We would like to acknowledge the many partners whose efforts have helped us get here: the National Park Service, DOE, LANL, the Los Alamos Historical Society, Los Alamos County, and the generous community support to ensure the preservation and interpretation of these significant historical sites. We would also like to recognize former U.S. Senator Jeff Bingaman, who worked early on for this historic park. Jeff left the Senate 2 years ago, but his legacy continues, and today is another great example. We were honored to serve with him in Congress and proud to build on what he started by getting the park included in the Defense Appropriations Bill last year. This is an important place, important to history, and important to New Mexico. It is an epic story with great consequences, and a story we are still trying to fully understand. The historical park makes sure that that story gets told. The Manhattan Project truly did change the world, and for many of us in New Mexico, we felt that change personally. The work was urgent, and it was top secret. Workers from Espanola, Powaca, and all of the surrounding communities were instrumental in constructing the original town site. Many of those early workers were local residents whose children and grandchildren still work in Los Alamos today. The Manhattan Project also attracted brilliant scientists from all over the world who came here in a race against time with Nazi Germany. It was also the beginning of the Department of Energy and of Los Alamos and Sandia National Laboratories. The Manhattan Project's history is complicated, but this park will educate generations to come through the stories of those who made it all possible. For this community, it also tells the story of incredible creativity and the power of science. LANL continues to attract the best and the brightest researchers and innovators in national security, in energy, in medicine, and in technology. Lionel is crucial to our past and to our future, and this park will allow us to share its unique history with the world. Thank you again for the opportunity to share in today's celebration, and we look forward to continue working with you in the days to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you again to the senators for all of their support in making this a reality. We now, I am very excited to say, have a performance from our Mountain Elementary School students for Working on the Hill.
I'm the general on the hill. I'm the general on the hill. You're working for the USA. That is all I have to say, 'cause I'm the general on the hill. I am a bee on the hill. I am a bee on the hill. Abby's really not my name, but I will answer just the same, 'cause I am a bee on the hill. Bee is a bee on the hill. Bee is a bee on the hill. Why we're here and what's it for? We are here to stop this war, 'cause bee is a bee on the hill. Bee is
We appreciate that. So we are going to, in 1 minute, unveil the sign, and then we will also be walking over to Fuller Lodge for the continuation of the Veterans Day ceremony. Before we unveil the park sign, I think the kids are such a great representation that there were families and there were communities involved in the Manhattan Project, and that continues today. And as we know from the National Park Service, they can tell a nuanced story, they can tell a complicated story. And we trust that they will do that and that they will be able to preserve all sides of the story for future generations.
Aaron.